I flew around the country and visited other surgeons who were in private practice and had different styles of private practice, all amazing surgeons who were very transparent with what their business journey was like and gave me surgical advice, gave me hiring advice, gave me business advice.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Lindsey Pennington, who was the first female double board certified facial plastic surgeon in the state of Louisiana with her very own solo private practice, focusing on both non-invasive as well as surgical facial rejuvenation, and she's been in her own private practice since 2016. So Dr. Pennington began her training at Tulane University in New Orleans and completed her medical degree from the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. She then completed a residency in otolaryngology and head and neck surgery, and an additional year of surgical training in facial and reconstructive surgery under a past president of the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery. Now, what makes her practice stand out to me is her concierge level post-op services with overnight nursing that's included in surgical fees, advanced recovery protocols, assistance with coordinating sitter services, transportation, and pro-healing meal planning with a local chef meal prep service that we'll talk more about. So Dr. Pennington, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I've been watching your podcast for years.
Oh, that's fantastic. So tell me, why facial plastic surgery? When I was growing up, I never heard of such a thing. Did you come from a family of that?
No, not at all. I actually, I was talking to a patient about this yesterday. When I started medical school, I thought I wanted to do rural family medicine, which is nothing to do with surgery, nothing to do with plastics or cosmetics. And as I got more experience in medical school and in my medical training, I got more hands-on. I had transitioned from family medicine to maybe cardiology. I wanted to do something kind of more impactful, and I wanted there to be a kind of, there's a problem, I solve it kind of situation. And once I got on my third year surgical rotation, one of the general surgery interns that I was rotating with, she was actually an ENT intern. And when we do our intern year as head and neck surgeons, we rotate through general surgery, neurosurgery, burn, ICU. We do, a very comprehensive intern year before we then spend the next 4 years focusing on head and neck solely. And so when I was kind of telling her how I really enjoyed having a problem, finding a solution and fixing it, she was like, surgery might really be your thing. And I grew up in a small town, and the only surgeons I knew were these just kind of very textbook, big, male, loud surgeons. And I didn't know that it was something that you could be a female surgeon, you could have a family. And so when I started kind of exploring surgery as an option on my surgical rotation, I had scrubbed in on a carotid endarterectomy, and I was like, that was some of the most amazing anatomy I'd ever seen. And because of my previous interest in cardiology, I had scrubbed in on a CT surgery case, and it was big instruments and big things. And I was like, when I saw this carotid endarterectomy, and it was really kind of detail oriented, lots of anatomy, very important stuff in a small space, I was like, this seemed much more up my alley with my very kind of particular type A personality. And I have a lot of kind of artistic background, and it was something where she said, okay, well, if you like neck anatomy, have you thought about ENT? And I didn't even know what ENT was or head and neck surgery was. And so my next elective, I did an ENT elective, and I had the opportunity to work with a pediatric ENT doctor who was female. She was pregnant, and she was doing these cleft lip and palate surgeries on these babies. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, okay, this is something that I can do. It is life altering. Anything that has to do with the head neck region. So speaking, swallowing, taste, breathing, hearing. And it was just all of kind of your senses, all the things that contribute to quality of life and sensory and experiencing things around you. And so that was kind of the direction that started me on my path. I met with my um, kind of in third year of med school, you have it like a director who helps you kind of decide, make these things. And I sat down, I was like, I think I want to do ENT. And she was like, well, it's an extremely competitive residency. Usually it's something that people have been doing research since like even pre-med in these areas to make the relationships that you need to make. And I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I like set my mind to it. And so at that point, I set up away rotations at multiple different institutions and had the opportunity to spend a month at LSU here in Shreveport and fell in love with the program. And so I had visited 4 other programs during my 4th year, spent a month there each. And we call it like an acting AI, where you pretend to be an intern and you just show up and work really hard and learn a lot. And I loved the autonomy of the program. I loved the breadth of the program. They had subspecialists of every part. You know, they had neurootology, they had skull-based surgery, they had a facial plastic surgery actually fellowship at the time that I was there. And it was something that was all encompassing head and neck. Then it's a level 1 trauma center. So it was something where the residents got a lot of autonomy, a lot of hands-on experience, as well as a lot of direction from really amazing attending. So I worked really hard. I ranked at number 1 and was very blessed to get my first choice. And throughout my path of training, I really at the beginning liked the really sick patients and the really big cases. And then I kind of leaned in the direction of pediatric airway because that was, again, a really kind of high urgency, but required really delicate skill set. And then as I got more exposure to essentially the reconstructed components of head and neck and in trauma, I was really interested in putting faces back together, which I did a lot of in my training. And once I did that, I was like, okay, not only can I put them back together, I was learning more about the aesthetic components of it. And that's where I was like, okay, let me do a fellowship in facial plastic and reconstructive surgery. And in that fellowship, I'm free flap trained, I'm reconstructive trained. I got exposure to the aesthetic side of stuff. And once I got exposed to the aesthetic side of stuff, you can do peds, you can do adults, you can do things on patients who are healthy and happy and make them healthy and happier. And I really enjoyed that.
Let me jump in about the fellowship and how important that is. But I'm wondering, the fellowship to you, it would be all about getting that surgical excellence, learning from that top surgeon. You had a great fellowship surgeon, and just watching them do surgery. So that must enhance your surgical side as well. However, you also need to develop your business and marketing side. Was your fellowship helpful in being a good stepping stone to private practice?
Not at all. No. So there was not really, my fellowship was very kind of reconstructive heavy. And it was very, we didn't, in med school, you don't learn anything about business. And so that was something that came from when I was kind of halfway through my fellowship year of deciding what I wanted to kind of do with my life. I had interviewed with a couple of different practices, one here locally, one in the Birmingham area, one in the New Orleans area, and they were all employed positions or a like office sharing agreement in one. And my husband bought me the book, A Business Plan for Dummies.
Nice.
And I started looking at that. And that's how and I was like, I have been working really hard for other people for a very long time. And I was in a position where I had this vision in my head. And it particularly came about when I was looking at the office sharing agreement here locally with another plastic surgeon. And I was like, I care about who answers the phone. I care about what the lobby looks like and the waiting room looks like. And I care about how my patients feel when they come in and when they leave and how they're greeted and even how the paperwork is set up and their experience. And so once I realized that stuff was important to me, that was part of me realizing, hey, I might need to do this on my own to set it up in a way that my patients have the experience that I want them to have. And so thinking through it.
Were you able to jump from fellowship into solo practice? Did you moonlight in the beginning to?
I went straight. I was 5 months pregnant and went straight into solo private practice.
Did you know what location? Like, how did you know what building? And
I literally drove around town and I picked a non-medical location, which is now significantly more common. But it's literally like a strip mall, like right on the main line Ave in town. And it had a good front-facing street. I liked the location. It was near my house. And there was no other medical stuff around. There was restaurants, there was hair salons. And I was like, I like this place. It used to be a jewelry store. And as soon as I graduated fellowship, started doing renovations on the space and signed a commercial lease. And during that time, I flew around the country and visited other surgeons who were in private practice and had different styles of private practice. And some were very regimented and some were very kind of almost avant-garde and just kind of all over the place, but all amazing surgeons who were very transparent with what their business journey was like and gave me surgical advice, gave me hiring advice, gave me business advice. I'm still in touch with them today, of the ones who I met with very early in my career. And that is something that I am eternally grateful for. And every year, literally since the year that I finished my fellowship, I go and visit other surgeons throughout literally the entire world. And I discuss business stuff. I discuss, I'm really kind of niched and nuanced, and I do just facial rejuvenation at this point in my career. And we exchange techniques and learning what you like and what you don't like, and sharing kind of horror stories of bad experiences with employees or patients, and wins and victories. And it is the most fulfilling part of kind of my career and has been the biggest growth factor in the trajectory of my practice of really visiting and getting this kind of one-on-one time with amazing surgeons in the field. And so I'm very grateful for people who've opened their practices up. And I am now in on the other side of that, where I have surgeons asking to come visit me and opening up my OR time and opening up my time to have surgeons come visit me. It's something where it is a little bit draining and does make you feel a little vulnerable to have somebody staring at you during the whole case. But at the same time, I wouldn't be where I am today without all of the surgeons who opened up their doors for me and shared their time and their expertise. And so I'm very grateful to be able to give that time back to other surgeons who are either early in their career or further along in their career and trying to just advance their surgical techniques. But it's a very big part about facial plastic surgery that I have found to be so refreshing, that it is so very little is guarded. And I find in other specialties, there can be a lot of times where people are trying to keep secrets and hide stuff and gatekeep. And there is very little gatekeeping. When you go to those big AFBRS meetings, people are transparent, people are sharing ideas. It's very collaborative. And if one surgeon is doing better and you are sharing, everybody is doing better. And it raises the bar for everybody. And everybody wins. Surgeons wins, patient wins, and it's a good thing for everybody involved. So it's been really exciting to be a part of this.
the top docs that I know, they are the most giving surgeons I've ever seen. They never say no to people
Absolutely.
visiting. They're more than happy to share because they have that growth mindset. They know
Yep.
that it boats, whatever that saying is. But like everybody levels up, and I love that. If you look at this as a competitor, I think you get yourself into trouble with, oh, I have to hide everything. And quite frankly, there's nothing to hide now. The
No.
docs, they have the nuances. It's these little nuances that make all the difference in the world. I love that they share and they let you come in and take a look at things and see how they do it. Have you noticed nobody does this the same? Everyone has, they all have their,
Oh, even like, so there are surgeons that have written books and then they make like educational videos,
yeah.
and then you go visit them in office and none of that is ever the same. And if you talk to like my OR staff, and I've had OR staff that have been with me for years and I have newer staff, and it's one of those things where I'm constantly evolving. I'll visit a surgeon, I'll read an article, I'll go to a case, and I'm constantly tweaking new things, trying things, or I'll have an issue or a complication. And I'm like, okay, next time we're going to try this to prevent that. And it's a constant growth mindset, and you have to be curious and you have to be excited and energized by it. And I think if you are in that, I do it this way every single time, always, because this is what I was taught. You're going to get stuck and the field is just going to bypass you. And so there is a level of and I think that's why I like my job so much. It's one of those things that it's joyful every day because I constantly see each new patient as a challenge and I want to do better every day, every time.
Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now, in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit catherinemaley.com to schedule your review. So where are you at with the non-surgical? It looks like you have a full menu of non-surgical. Are you doing any of that? It looks like you also have a pretty big team there. So
I have slowly started to, as my surgical practice has gotten significantly bigger, rein that in. And it's not because I don't enjoy it. Like, I feel like there is a space for non-surgical. I think it's very important before surgery, after surgery. I think it is a very collaborative relationship, but it is something that in order for me to appropriately dedicate the time that I need to my surgical patients, I do have to cut back on my non-invasive side. So I went from doing it a couple days a week to just once a week to 2 days a month to once a month. And I'm at a point now where I'm probably going to be completely stepping back from injecting, of just having like an injection clinic. I'll be available for injections for my post-operative patients during their first year after surgery. But I have I had a dermatologist for a while that was injecting here. I'm in the works and talks of bringing another surgeon in to do some injections and potentially bringing on a physician extender. And it's something where having it as part of my practice just fits, because I do think it's a comprehensive, and I like to look at things globally. And I think it's one of those, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So being able to have a full breadth where when patients come in, I can offer them everything non-invasive, from injections to lasers to microneedling to aesthetic services to the full breadth of surgical services, helps patients feel that, I'm like, I don't have a dog in this fight of like what you pick. What I want you to do is be happy with the results that you have, and for you to have the appropriate expectations. So if we pick this avenue of treating your kind of facial aging, this is the results that you can expect and the maintenance that you're going to need. And if we choose this avenue, these are the results and this is the maintenance. And they can pick what works best for them. And then I'm not motivated one way or the other for them to pick anything other than what's the best fit for them and where they're at in life and where they're at in aging and what their goals are for themselves.
Do you find a lot of the med spa patients will level up to surgery eventually? I mean,
Absolutely.
Are you using it for that?
And that's, I think, was a huge part of how I transitioned to having such a busy surgical practice. It really started with me just injecting and having conversations with patients. And when they got to the point of like, gosh, I can't even Botox my forehead anymore because my brows are so heavy. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you have all this redundant skin on your upper lid and you have some brow ptosis. And hey, if we were to surgically reset that and remove some of this excess skin, you'd probably tolerate your Botox a little bit better, look a little more refreshed, awake. And then you just kind of have those organic, natural conversations. And I just say, whenever you're ready to have that conversation, I'm here. And they let us know. And we have that conversation when they're ready.
Nice. So regarding med spa, that means staff, that you need to manage, and there are more complexities to that. It's also managing the inventory, the training, the quality of service. How big is your team?
So we have about 14 employees. And it's something where I don't have an office manager. It's me. And my husband joined my practice about a year and a half ago, and he is a board certified anesthesiologist. And so when he is not providing my anesthesia, he is also kind of my CFO. So he does a lot of overseeing of the financial side of stuff. And then I have specific staff that are allocated to keeping track of like our skincare inventory, because I am like a SkinCeuticals, or I am a skincare flagship for a certain brand, and we carry multiple skincare brands and we carry multiple injectable brands. And so I have different employees that are in charge of kind of tracking numbers. And then comparing those against like shipping reports, and then we compare that against the computer, and then a separate person compares that against the financial output and the financial input of things. And so we've kind of allocated those things around, but I haven't found anybody that cares as much as I do about my business, which I don't think I'm going to, because if they did, they would have their own business. And so I'm still very hands-on in a lot of the aspect of that side of my staff. And I also very much care, and I want the experience. Again, that's something that I really care about, to be very seamless, of whether they're seeing me or they're seeing another provider or physician. I want it to feel the same. And so all of our staff are cross-trained and they work for both physicians. There isn't like one physician has this staff and then another physician has this staff. It's the same staff across the board. So it's a seamless experience. So it is a lot of work, and it doesn't come lightly. And, I've been putting in 80-hour weeks since 2011, and that's just kind of how my life is. And I'm a mother. I have 2 young kids, and I have, a husband and a life, and it's, you make it what you want to make it.
So how do you go about hiring people? It's become fairly a big challenge. I don't know about for you, but for everybody else it has. Any hiring tips?
So with that, this is HR people is the hardest part. Being a surgeon, extremely easy. Even in general, running a business, once you kind of get the, understand P&Ls and KPIs and all those kind of things and get some SOPs in place, like it's very, to a surgeon, intuitive, because it's very linear and you get processes.
Yeah.
And employees is where the variability comes in. And so finding people who believe in you and believe in your brand is so valuable. And I will take somebody who is less educated, less experienced, who has a good attitude and believes in what we are doing and in our mission at my practice, over somebody with 10 times the amount of experience. Because to me, it's more about attitude, and it's more about the willingness to learn and to want to contribute and be a team member. And so I have found that one, resumes are lies. It doesn't matter what it says on a piece of paper. You need to meet the person. And so I'll have my husband make like the first reach out phone call when we get a resume for a position. And my husband is very introverted, very quiet, very calm, very different than I am. And so he will come back and be like, the conversation was easy or hard. And if the conversation is easy with him, then the person is going to be outgoing and easy, if that makes sense. And then at that point, they'll come in and they'll usually meet me. And then if that conversation goes well, and I set the expectations of, we work really, really hard here. I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't want any surprises. I don't want somebody to be like, I wasn't expecting this. And I essentially sell them doom and gloom at that interview. And then if they're still interested, then we set up a working interview where they come spend a day with us. And I usually pick the busiest day of the week with the longest hours. And I tell them, wear comfortable shoes, bring something to eat, and be prepared to be here from this time to this time. And it could go longer, and you're going to need flexibility. And I just set that framework up front, and I give them time without me around with other employees, where they can ask questions that they feel like maybe like aren't filtered, or they wouldn't feel comfortable asking me. And I have found that working interview is extremely valuable. And if I ever have questions, I'll have them come back for another one on another day. But I ask the other employees how they feel about it, if they felt like they vibed well, because not only do you have to pick the employee, but the employee has to pick you. Like, it's very much like dating, and you need to feel like it meshes well. And so, and there's a whole team involved, and everybody needs to get along. And when it's an office full of like 14 women, and when you add in my surgical side even more, my husband is the only kind of drip of testosterone anywhere in the building. It's important to make sure that everybody feels good about it. And so I do include my other staff members in the kind of hiring process, and I take their opinions into account. And I think that's very valuable as well.
So usually I say, like, how do you bonus people, or how do you motivate them? Tell us what you did recently.
Okay. So this wasn't meant as like a financial incentive. It was meant for education. And so what I did was there's this culture index testing. And if any sort of kind of, it's almost like a love language quiz or the Myers-Briggs, but it's like the business version of it. So I had all of my employees take a culture index test, and then I brought an expert in, and we individually went around and everybody kind of went through what their culture index was. And it explains learning styles, communication styles, if they like to be leaders or followers. And it was very interesting to see organically where people set up. And in the future, I'm going to probably have people take this culture index test prior to hiring to see if I'm putting them in the right seat on the bus type of situation. And so we spent the morning doing that, learning more about each other and getting some of my surgical side with my kind of med spa side, and getting them to integrate and learning how to communicate better with each other. Because say if somebody's a high A and a low C and those kind of things, it's going to change whether how you're going to interrupt them or saying is now a good time, or sending them an email, and reading the room better on communications and how those communications are received. And then I afterwards surprised them with a very kind of high level concierge experience, which is what is kind of, if you look at our kind of business byline logo, what we live by is our goal for our patients. Is I want every patient to feel individualized and special, and like they're the only person in the building. And so I wanted each staff member to feel like that. So I surprised them by taking them by private vehicle to the private airport, and we had 2 private planes, and I flew them to Dallas for the day, where we were then taken to the conservatory, which is a very kind of upscale, it's in Highland Park, Dallas, kind of boutique store. And they have an expert kind of perfume concierge person there. And so what he did was an individualized consultation with each one of my employees. And that's what we do here. When we do injection consultations or we do a surgical consultation, it's very individualized and centered around the patient experience. And we rented out a little like lunchroom there called like the Teak Room at the conservatory. And we had a few speakers who came in, and some were from industry and talked about kind of just providing higher level experiences and how to make patients feel seen. And I gave my employees, a really high-end lunch, and we had caviar, and we had champagne, and then we talked about how even the conservatory had transitioned the space where they had moved all of their perfumes over to where we were going to be having lunch. We were running a little bit late from travel time. And when we walked in, it was seamless. They didn't comment on us being late. It just felt like we were perfectly on time. The service was impeccable. And it was something where I wanted my staff to feel what it felt like for my patients and to feel seen. And it was also just like a thank you for working as hard as you do and helping me be where I am, because I cannot do what I do every day without every single one of my employees. Every single one matters.
Was the staff blown away by this experience?
They were, and it was really fun, and it was a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of them. And then after the kind of fancy lunch and customized perfume situation, we then went to another place in Dallas where everybody got massages, and we kind of sat in hot springs and then just drank some alcohol and just had some fun for the rest of the day. And then flew back home, and I made sure that we scheduled it on a work day, which was a Friday, so that they weren't missing time with their family on the weekends, and everybody got paid for the day. So, because, I have employees that are single moms where missing a day's work would be highly impactful to their overall livelihood. And so trying to take into account and be sensitive and empathetic to each individual employee's lifestyle and where they're at, and meet them where they are is also important as an employer.
Well, for years, I have always recommended the surgeon, the easiest way to get your staff on board and to get across your 5-star customer service boutique kind of culture feeling is to let them experience it. You went way over the top. I said, just go have lunch at the Ritz or something. You had me at the private plane. That has been on my bucket list forever, and I still haven't got it yet. I have always wanted to skip the TSA line and go straight to a plane.
You literally drive up to the plane and just walk right on. And it's
my
so
dream
fun.
come true.
And it was such a lovely experience. And then even on the plane, I went as far as I have two staff with like food allergies, and I had very specific, like we had food and drink available, but I had very specific, like labeled with their names on it, stuff that was able for them to eat. And it was just very intentional
Yeah.
in what I did. And so they felt, every single person felt special. And so, that unreasonable hospitality, if you've read that book and abide
Yeah.
by that, like that's what we were trying to communicate with our staff. And then when we came back, I asked all the staff members to kind of write me a summary email of what they learned from the day, and what their experience is and how that's going to translate into their patient care. And even for my estheticians who provide, a service, that's going to matter. For the girls at the front desk, of how they answer the phone, it's going to matter. And so every single step of it matters. And that's how I treat my patients. It's how I act in the operating room. And it's something where now my employees, which most of them already kind of know this and contribute to it, it was a way for me to show them a thank you, but also for them to kind of live it, experience it, and notice some of the nuanced details of it.
So the big question is, did it stick?
I mean, I think so. The culture, the feeling, the teamwork that has been, it's almost like riding on a high since we've done that. And it's so fun because probably that was, I don't know, a couple months ago. One of my staff members sent out an email on her own, out of the blue, that just said, "Hey, this is something that I saw online." And it was, somebody had done a study of like plastic surgery patients. And it was like there was a screenshot of a reason that they would book or not book, and their first impression of walking in the front door and their first impression of the front office was listed extremely high there. So she took a screenshot of that social media post, emailed it out to all the staff, and she's just like my perioperative nurse, and said, "This is what I'm going to do to change this. Normally I have post-op patients meet me in the back, and our back entrance just isn't cute, and it's very functional." And she's like, "I'm going to have all new preoperative patients meet me in the front. I'm going to walk them through a pretty front office. What are you guys going to do with this information?" And she did that completely unprompted on her own. And
Mhm.
so to me, and then each staff member started to kick in, and it wasn't a requirement. It wasn't coming from me. It wasn't coming from their boss. It
Mhm.
was just that collaborative team vibe. And that's when I like got the warm fuzzies, and I was like, I think it worked. I think it stuck. I think it's like compounding.
Right? I hope so, because that is the way to do it. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Let me ask, not to be negative, because everything right now sounds way too perfect. Just give me, just give me one mistake that you have made in this journey that others can learn
Oh,
from, or you have learned a lot from.
I mean, there's so many. Like, you don't succeed without failure on failure on failure on failure. Like, that is what success is taking a failure as a learning opportunity, learning from it, and just not making that mistake again. So it's I'm 10 years in now at this point. Like, this isn't new. And I didn't get here by accident. I got here through multiple failures, through multiple terrible employees, people who've quit right away. Most recently, I had an experience with like an employee who had been here for a very long time. And, I treated that employee more as a friend than employee, and just didn't have a good separation between work and friendship. And that was something that I probably won't do again. I won't blur those lines again, because you can compromise yourself and put yourself in vulnerable situations that can then be used against you. And when you're trusting somebody as a friend versus treating somebody like HR compliant as an employee. And so that's something where I think as women, we are particularly vulnerable to, because of that people pleasing mentality of, we really just want to be liked and we want everybody to like us. And I am the boss. I am a surgeon. There needs to be a line. There needs to be a demarcation. There needs to be a certain level of perceived approachability, where like, you can send me an email, we can talk, I'm here for you, but I'm not going to go drinking with you every weekend or text with you about your boyfriend after hours. And just kind of set some boundaries, which also frees up time for me and protects time with my family, and also protects my business. So that is kind of the most recent one.
Most surgeons get to the point where They realize that everyone's made that same mistake, men and women. It's just,
Yeah.
it happens because you get comfortable and then you get blindsided.
So you get burned.
Um, that's where I say that is time to get a buffer. I like to have a buffer
Yeah.
between the staff and the surgeon, and you stay the surgeon, and all the drama and all the crap stays away from you and goes to the office manager who does have your back. And I know that's
Yes.
easy to find, but
Yes. And I'm geographically where I am also, I think is somewhat limiting for finding some of those higher level employees. And so I do think getting like a COO in here would be like kind of my dream transition.
Poor husband, did he know when he married you he was going to be the anesthesiologist, the office manager, the
Everything. He works just as hard as I do. It's really nice though, because he was working really hard before when he was just doing an anesthesiologist and taking
yeah.
72-hour calls. At least when he's working really hard, we're getting to do it together and we're seeing each other more, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And it was really challenging. The way vacation was set up with his group, you have to request it a year in advance. And so it was really hard to like meld our vacations. And now I'm like, well, I'm the boss. You can have vacation when I take vacation and we can take the kids to this place. And so that part has been really valuable in that. And I have a couple of weeks coming up where I have some really, really busy back-to-back things. And it's nice. He's going to come with me and support me, and I'm going to be, going from one event and he's going to drive me to the other event. And while I'm driving, I'll be getting able to do calls and work done and do those kind of things and help with my multitasking. And I trust him more than anybody in the whole wide world. And so who better to have by your side, and I wouldn't be where I am without an extremely supportive husband. Like, you don't have a family and a business without like the ultimate support system in place. And he is a huge part of that. Like, he is the pillar part of that. And then you add in like his parents, when I started to get extremely busy, have moved up and moved in with us and are extremely helpful with childcare. And it's just, we're really blessed by the village that we have, because we live somewhere where we didn't have any family. And we were hiring childcare, and we still have hired childcare available in addition to that. And, we're kind of outsourcing the stuff that we don't want to spend time doing, but having people who we love and trust around us is invaluable.
Oh, I love that setup. And getting the parents involved, also the grandparents, they must be thrilled as well.
They are, and it's so fun. You can't have too many people loving on your kids. Like, it's amazing.
Right? By the way, how did you guys end up there? Are you from there or?
No. So I am originally from New Mexico, which is where I went to medical school. My husband is originally from South Louisiana. We met at Tulane in New Orleans during undergrad. So we've been together, 24 years. May will be our 18th wedding anniversary. We waited, obviously, we were both medical, and he was a few years ahead of me, and we lived apart for some years. And so we waited a long time to have children. And so it was where I did my residency and fellowship. And with him being a few years ahead of me, he was already out in private practice and had a really good job. And so we weren't in a position, and I was pregnant. I was like, well, let's just stay. I'll start a practice. And if it takes off, cool. And if not, we can always move and I can always get a job. And my practice just blew up. And now my husband works with me, and it's history.
Nice. So let's talk about marketing. And I was going to say, how do you differentiate yourself? First, how competitive is it there?
So locally, for the population size in Shreveport, it's pretty darn competitive from like a plastic surgery standpoint. We have, the academic institution where I did my fellowship is there. And right now there are three or four facial plastic surgeons just at LSU alone. And then outside of LSU, there's me, and then there's at least two other facial plastics. And then as far as like general or full body plastics, we have at least 8 or 9, like, and for a town of 300,000, that it's a significant number of, actually truly board certified, excellent surgeons in the area. And then, there's a med spa on every corner. Yeah. So that is definitely something that I think the market is competitive, and it's aesthetics, I think, is always competitive.
How important has it been to use social media to bring in the out-of-towners? Because if you only have 300,000 people and an awful lot of surgeons there, have you felt that? Or could you live off of the local population?
I mean, I did live off the local population for probably the first 3 or 4 years of my practice.
Mhm.
And with that, again, I was injecting a lot and probably operating 1 to 1.5 days a week. And through social media, I didn't have a website for the first 5 years I was in practice. When I very first opened my doors, I got like some billboards for 3 months, and then I did a few little like print, like paper print ads
Oh,
locally, and then just made a Facebook and an Instagram page, and posted skincare products and posted injectables, and occasionally posted a surgical before and after, and just did that. And then once I was about 5 or 6 years in, I did a little website. It was a company that a friend of mine who's a veterinarian used, and they mostly do vet websites, and they did my website for me. And then social media wise, I think for me, the transition really happened when I stopped posting my med spa stuff on my business social media page. And I just made it my surgical social media page, and I separated out my med spa stuff, and I put that on a separate, its own little kind of Instagram page. And that's when things really kind of took off and got bigger for me, because I think people had to scroll through, okay, we're having a skincare sale on this, microneedling this, Botox this, to find anything consistently surgical. And my estheticians were posting, my dermatologist was posting, my front desk was posting. It was kind of all over the place. And so that is when, for me, things really took off, is when I really kind of put my surgical stuff and compiled it and had it really condensed. And so on my Instagram, I only post my surgical stuff. And then when we have a skincare sale or injectable thing, I post it on my other Instagram page.
I think that's a great idea. You have 47,000 followers, and when you go to your Instagram, and I do the desktop so I can see everything all at once,
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell you're a surgeon. Like there's no doubt about it. You're talking
And
about,
before, I think you couldn't.
yeah, it's buried, and you did. So the question is, how are you able to get your patients to show themselves on Instagram when others say, "Oh, my patients are so private, they would never do that."
They are so private, and it is so hard. And it's like maybe 1 in 40 patients lets me show. So it's
One
just
in
sheer
four?
volume, like 1 in 40, maybe.
40. Okay, I was going to say because the top docs say 1 in 10. Yeah.
Oh, I would pay so much money for 1 in 10. I would love that. No, it's literally like 1 in 40. It's really, that is the most challenging. I have found that more recently patients have, and I think some of the stigma is just coming down on this, as far as, more celebrities are sharing, more people are
Yeah.
talking about it. It's getting a little bit more socially acceptable to share, that I have patients who have said, one right now who is letting me film her kind of recovery journey, which I think is an even more vulnerable process than just your before and after, who said, you posted a patient's recovery journey and she actually had a complication. And I obviously wasn't planning on her having a complication when we started her recovery journey. But I posted it anyways. And the patient was very transparent and very vulnerable, and as was I in the process. And she said, that inspired me to pick you and helped me build confidence in you. And so I'm okay with sharing. I'm scared to do this, but I'm okay with sharing because I want to pay it forward, because she's the reason I chose you. And I want to thank you. And the way I want to thank you is by being a reason somebody chooses you. So I don't provide any incentives for my patients to share their journey or before and afters. There's no discounts. I did that with like one patient. It was a nightmare. So I don't provide any incentives. I don't provide any discounts. There's nothing other than, would you please? And any patient who is willing to, I do. And I'm eternally grateful. And I'm very protective of them. Like if the little internet trolls get on there and have comments to say, like, I will immediately delete or block. These patients have put themselves out there out of a place of just sheer vulnerability and thankfulness and altruism. And it is, It's amazing. And I feel really blessed that patients trust me to do their facelifts, let alone to share their journeys.
It's the authenticity we're all dying for, and you have that down. How much time are you spending on social media?
A lot. It is a big part of my practice. And it's something where,
I want everyone to know that because it looks like the way you're cavalierly saying, "Oh, we have like 47,000 followers." That doesn't happen by magic. Like, and
no,
you're the
no,
front man. Like you have to be the surgeon and the marketing and the front of your practice. Like, you are. It's a lot.
it is. It is. And it's something where I've tried outsourcing it. I've tried hiring people and it doesn't work. If it's not you and it's not your voice, it's not authentic and patients feel it and it just doesn't come across. And so what has worked best for me is I have a girl, she's from Shreveport, but she kind of is, we call her a digital nomad. She kind of travels the world just living her best life. And so what we do is basically I film the content. I do not like watching my videos back because if I watch a video back, I would never post anything ever. And if I like got into an editing wormhole, so I just sit down, I film content that comes up where I'm like, I got asked this question like 5 times this week. I'm going to film a video on it and we're going to post it. And so I just answer patient questions and then I send it to Miranda, who's my girl that I work with. And then she's the one that will edit it. And then she'll send me the caption to review. I edit the caption to put my voice in it because even though her and I've been working together probably a year and a half, 2 years now, it's still my voice. It's still just not there. And I'll edit the caption and then she's the one that physically like schedules the post. And so that has saved me some time because up until about a year and a half ago, I was still scheduling every single post. I still like, she's the only other person that has access to my Instagram account. I still respond personally to every comment, to every DM, everything. Like that is all me. So when I finish an 8-hour surgery day, I sit down and while the patient's recovering, I go through all my emails. Like that's when my workday starts. And then I go through all my emails for the day. Then I go home and I put my kids to bed and snuggle them and get my goodnight kisses. And then once my kids are in bed, that's when social media starts. And I sit down and I probably spend 1 to 2 hours going through all the comments and the DMs and responding to stuff.
Well, it sounds like it's paying off, but there's something else you do that's unbelievable. And especially as a mature woman, like you do a lot of facial rejuvenation for mature women. And at that point, when you get older, I'm just going to say from personally, when you get older, I care a lot more about other things than just the money. I care about the time, the convenience, the comfort, the how well I'm being taken care of. I care so much more now about that than I ever did about saving a dollar. So could you just discuss your recovery, your post-op recovery protocol? Because that's the secret.
And it's something that once I started getting a lot of patients that were traveling in, I found that the need was there for it because there was so much anxiety involved in the how am I going to get there? How am I going to find the place? Who is going to take care of me? That by providing, even if they traveled in with somebody, that first night when they wake up and they're groggy and they're sleepy and then they go home and then they sleep for a couple hours and they wake up in the middle of the night and they're wide awake and then their caretaker is tired because they've been up all day nervous about them. I was like, okay, we can problem solve this. And I'm a queen problem solver. If I'm not anything but a good surgeon and a good problem solver, that is me. And so what we did is hiring the overnight nurse has added so much value because we keep really close care. I know the patient's getting the care that we need. We know the blood pressure is where it needs to be. We know they're getting the medicine. They're eating the foods they're supposed to eat. And then the next morning I see them, I post-op them, they do their hyperbaric treatment, they get an IV recovery protocol of amino acids and vitamins and peptides that are going to help with bruising and expedite their healing process, especially with all these patients on GLP-1s that come in like extremely kind of depleted and don't have the building blocks they need to recover. It's extremely valuable. I used to own a restaurant that was too much and it was too much work and I was too tired and we closed it. But one of my chefs from there, we have come up together with a low inflammatory, high protein, high fat, easy to chew meals that she then delivers a week at a time for the patient. And so the morning after surgery, their caretaker comes to get them. And if it's whether it's a family member, friend, or one of the sitter services that we work closely with, takes their meals with them for the week. And we have a a very standardized list of VRBOs, and we have a relationship with a hotel that's like one of those kind of long-term stays that has like a little kitchenette and all of those, where they can heat things up and cook things. And it's right next to Whole Foods where they can run over and get stuff that's low sodium and approved. And we have a concierge pharmacy that delivers all their medications for all of my out-of-town patients. So when they show up, we have everything ready for them and they're not running around town scrambling. And that just lowers the cortisol levels, which is going to improve healing and recovery, improve, their overall trust in the process. And it's what I would want as a patient. And I've been a patient before. Like when I got my breast dog, I got it in a different city, and I woke up in a hotel room and I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do and where to go. And so I've learned a lot from being a patient. My mom was one of my facelift patients, and watching her recovery journey and things that I could do. And with her at the time, I was making all of my patients get off of their HRT before surgery. And I saw how miserable she was getting off her HRT. And so none of my patients get off HRT now. We do a few extra precautions with them. If we have all patients get SCDs and they use those after surgery, and we have ambulation protocols and things like that. But it's been one of those things where everything that I do is intentional and with purpose, and to really, again, like I did with my staff, make people feel seen, feel safe, feel protected, and kind of trust in the process, because it is scary to trust somebody with your face. It is weird to travel outside of your home place and be somewhere that you don't know. And so we try to mitigate as many of the external factors that can cause stress as we can control.
Well, I commend you so much for doing that and thinking of the patient first. That's why you have hundreds of 5-star reviews. It's just going over the top, and that's what we want. And we'll pay for that. And by the way, getting a location near a Whole Foods, you do know that's amazing. Like wherever Whole Foods goes, you should follow. And so that was a really good, I don't know if you were trying to be strategic, but that was killer.
No, that's just by the Whole Foods is where the hotel is close to. Unfortunately, my office is not next to the Whole Foods, but that's okay, because the rent when I first got it was super cheap, and I now own the building. I was able to buy it and build out my surgery center, because when I first had it, I just had 2,000 square feet of my med spa, and now I've bought the entire complex, and I've built out a 7,500 square foot with esthetician space, and I have 2 ORs and all the things. So I've just been able to kind of grow and overtake things, and it's been wonderful.
That is fabulous. I'm just saying, if Whole Foods moved in, they know there's movement coming there. So you're just early, and that's why you have to buy the real estate. I was afraid to ask you. I thought, gosh, I don't want to say, oh, I hope you bought your building, and then you say, no, I didn't. But congratulations. Darn, you're doing it all. You're doing it all good things.
I'm trying. I'm working really hard, and I'm really tired, and I have, again, an amazing support system, but that's how you get it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So.
Right. But my only recommendation would be, honestly, get that buffer person between you and the staff. That'll make your life so much easier.
I highly, 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 highly agree with that. So that is actually very high on the priority list, but it does also need to be the right person, because again, horror story wise, that's where I've heard the most kind of conflicts, betrayals, financial vulnerabilities. And so finding the right person for that fit. So if you have advice there, I am all ears, because I just talked to a facial plastic surgeon with a really successful practice, and he's in the process of opening, I think, a second location. And he hired a COO and said it was a game changer, but he's in Atlanta. So he has a much bigger kind of pool of people to choose from that are highly educated and motivated. So how do you kind of headhunt a situation?
Just a couple tips. Take your time, vet them carefully, many, many, many points of contact to see if they're consistent, and don't abdicate. They do it, but then you meet with them weekly to go over the killer, like serious metrics and KPIs to make sure everyone's on the up and up. This is where the embezzlement happens, quite frankly. So
yes,
and have your husband watch over them as well. But anyway, we've got to go. But I was going to say, tell us something interesting we don't know about you. Quite frankly, I'm interested in the restaurant. Did you open a restaurant after you became a surgeon, and when did that happen?
Yeah, that happened right in the middle of all of this. I'm pretty
what
sure
were you thinking?
It was a passion project for my husband. We are like foodies. And so when we travel, like I don't travel to go camping. I don't travel to go to the beach. I travel to cities and I pick a restaurant and then we plan the whole trip around that restaurant and what we're going to do. So it was just a passion project for us. We had found these two young chefs that we wanted to kind of invest in and help them grow. And it's just one of those things that, just like any business, if you're not in the business and you're not there every day, people are going to steal, stuff's going to happen, and it's not going to run right. And so it was one of those things where I think if we were both in it and doing it, the restaurant would still be open. But we kind of just opened it and put these brand new baby chefs in there. And we were like, okay, we've hired all the right people, go. And there was no real boss there. And then it was me leaving work at 6 p.m. and walking next door to the restaurant and trying to run the restaurant and dealing with the drama of 40 servers who, if you think that estheticians or front desk people are hard work, they're nothing. All of my staff are amazing here. The drama between servers and line cooks and bartenders and all of that kind of stuff. And so, but it was an amazing restaurant. It was a really good learning experience. It did kind of form a really big foundation in my business knowledge, and learned a lot about protecting myself, protecting my business, protecting my time, setting boundaries, but also knowing like, hey, I am a businesswoman and I can do things, but I have to be there to actually do it.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap it up now. Anybody, if you wanted to check out her website and her Instagram, I highly recommend. It's PenningtonFacialPlasticSurgery.com. What's your Instagram handle?
At Pennington Facial Plastics.
Makes sense. And you even have a fancy name. That's helping your branding as well. Everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would please subscribe and give me a review at Beauty in the Biz so we can extend our audience as well. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, please leave them on my website at CatherineMaley.com, or you can always DM me on Instagram at CatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Top plastic surgery practices convert more than 80% of their consultations into surgery. Now, the difference usually isn't better patients, it's a better and more strategic consultation structure. Here's the real issue. You're already paying to generate those consults through marketing, staff, and overhead. But if your coordinator is not professionally trained to guide patients through the decision process, many of those qualified patients walk out the door never to be heard from again. That's lost revenue you've already invested to attract. So if you want your practice performing at the level of the top tier, invest in the people responsible for converting consultations. Learn more at convertingacademy.com.